Ron DeSantis, by the way, is at a war with Disney over the Don't Say Gay bill because he said Disney's woke. And the Don't Say Gay bill, by the way, that I have a funny bit on it now on stage, but from what I looked into it, it's just you can't instruct the kids on gender theory before they're 3 or something. It's
kindergarten
like
to 2nd grade.
Yeah, who disagrees with that, really? Who needs, what are we doing here?
And there already wasn't a curriculum in place in that state.
Yeah, so it's like, don't bring in a new curriculum to teach people, to teach 7-year-olds about gender theory. It just doesn't need to happen, right? And it doesn't need to happen. Nobody thinks it needs to happen. But this really gets to the heart of the problem, where there is this argument that I would be very sympathetic to, that a lot of kids, when they are young, that experience some type of gender dysphoria, if it's not major gender dysphoria, a lot of them will end up just kind of being gay, perhaps. They will not feel the need to physically alter themselves. Some will. Some are probably genuinely 100% trans. But if a 6-year-old wears a dress, they could be experimenting, they're having fun, maybe they end up being gay. It may not be something that is really indicative of how they want to live the rest of their life. I think that's a pretty rational, sane position. I don't think it's a crazy, turf, insane position, which again is, another word that we've made up to just, if you recognize any biological difference between a man and a woman, you're a turf. And again, the vast majority of people do recognize those differences. And that isn't at all a rejection of trans identity or trying to hurt trans people. Now, there are some people that make it their entire brand. They speak about nothing except the differences between men and women, which is, it's maybe a little suspect, a little sus, where it's like the only thing you talk about over and over again. And they do it on both sides. Where are the trans people in the Ukraine going to go? And it's just every single minute is trans. Are there detransitioners in the Ukraine? What about them? What about the people who cut their tits off in the Ukraine and want their tits back? And you go, why is this every day, all day, every minute? Every second of the day we're doing this over and over again because I guess it's just this is some people's beat. And I understand, and there's people that have written really interesting stuff about it. And I understand that, and it does seem to be more and more of the culture. It's more and more of an issue. People are fighting about it more and more. And I'm a very who cares person on this because, number one, I don't have children. Number two, if I had children, I would not want them altering their bodies until they were old enough really to fully make that conscious choice. And I've said that before. I don't think that's a trans exclusionary point of view. Now, are there parents that would disagree with me and go, no, my child genuinely feels that going through puberty would be abuse, and because they are super trans, there should be a council to just decide if your kid's really trans. Like, there should be a council of people that go like, you are legit. There are some kids that are trans. If there's like a 4-year-old with like a beard and she's like, yup, bro, what up? I'm like, all right, just let her not have the tits. But a lot of them, you feel like they're just experimenting. I could have been trans when I was young. Like, I had like very like feminine qualities. A lot of people do. I still do. Most men I know have feminine qualities now. And they have sex with women. So this idea that reducing everything to this very simplistic understanding of everything, I get a little worried when the pharmaceutical companies get in bed with everybody and they go, they need these and that and the hormones and the pills. And some kids do. Some kids are genuinely trans. And there needs to be a way to decide that. Like, why doesn't J.K. Rowling, instead of just, again, with the man, woman, do a new Harry Potter book about a council of people who decides which wizards are trans or not when they're children? That hat where you go to Gryffindor or Slytherin, because the sorting hat knows you better than you know you. Well, we need a sorting hat for trans kids to find out who's really in and who's out, because you can get the tits back, right?
You could get implants, yeah.
Can't you just get it back anyway?
Yeah.
Can't you just explain to the kids, if you don't want titties, but you might get the titties later? But then the problem is you take all the hormones and you're like, oh. But I think if you stop taking them, it'll wear off too. But I don't know. Maybe these hormones and pills aren't nearly as effective as I think they are.
Yeah, you have to keep taking them. You have to. It's a regimen, I believe. I don't want to speak for the trans
But so
experience,
let's say you're a kid and you transition kind of. But I guess that does fuck up your body if you don't go through natural puberty, for sure.
Yeah, probably.
Because that's right. But my whole thing is this, like, I'm almost a fan of the take a tit, leave a tit model. You ever see the take a book, leave a book? It's our last episode. But do you ever see what I mean here? Take a book, leave a book, where usually the crazy old librarian witch women will put out a bowl of books like outside of their homes or outside of some place of business or something, and there'll be a take a book, leave a book. And the idea there is that you take a book and replenish it with a book that maybe you finished to promote reading in the community. I'm almost a fan of the take a tit, leave a tit, where can we make it easier and cheaper for people to just get tits whenever they want or take tits away? Because the problem is how expensive this all is. Isn't that the issue here? Isn't it expensive because you can't just walk in there and get the poon made into a peen. It's a little bit of dough. Mark Norman had a great joke. He's like, you call a lot of these people brave. Caitlyn Jenner's brave. She's just rich. It was a Mark Norman joke. It's a brilliant joke where it was like, some people just don't have that ability, is my point.
Because insurance doesn't cover these procedures often, right?
For sure, but my thing is it gets messy when it's kids because kids don't know what they're doing. You know, they don't know. The kids don't really know, and they might regret it. Some of them might regret it. Some of them do regret it, right? There's all these detransitioners. Katie Herzog's written 15 novels about detransitioners, and they've been translated into many different languages. She wrote a War and Peace style novel in Russian about detransitioners. It was War and Peace, but what if everyone had detransitioned? They were trans and then went back. So that's my whole thing on this. I think kids need to be kids. I think adults need to leave kids alone. We have a weird society now where adults are all over children and telling them what to do and who to be and how to believe. I think children need to figure out who they are. I think kids are going to figure out if they're gay, if they're trans. They need to figure that out with their own life. I don't think that we need to impose a value system on children that are too young to completely understand what decisions they're making. I've said it a million times. I'm just wondering if there's a happy medium. A la take a tit, leave a tit. Is there a happy medium? What about instead of the operation, let them dress? What about realistic prosthetics? Here we go. Give them a cock that's like a fake cock.
Oh.
Right?
Like Mr. Potato Head or
something?
something?
Yes. Instead of doing anything medical, give them jelly tits or a fake cock or something. No, I'm dead serious. It's funny because you can laugh at it, but instead of doing something that's irreversible, why don't you give them like a more realistic like a suit to wear? Is that not a good idea? Like, oh, you think you're a dude? Here's a fake cock. Now, in a few years, you might want a real cock, or you might take this off and go, I don't want the fake cock anymore. It's not a bad idea. Has anyone pitched this? Probably. But it's a happy medium, right? If your son wants to be a chick, instead of doing something irreversible medically, do like a Ms. Doubtfire every morning, where you make him into the woman he wants to be. If you had a son, it'd kind of be, I mean, listen, unless you're really homophobic, and I'm sure not every dad would be thrilled about it. Not every dad would be thrilled about making their son, doing their son drag every morning. But it could be fun. You buy him little, the leopard coat and, you know, you don't want to make it buffoonish, but they shouldn't be without style. Now, is that a happy medium? Now, like, and the dad might not like it as the dad's putting the wig on and doing the makeup. And the mom might go, listen, you think you don't like this? Well, the other option is something irreversible medical that we can't afford. And the dad goes, I guess you're right. And he adjusts the wig and he puts the lipstick on. I mean, literally, who cares? I'm one of the most progressive people when it comes to gender because I don't care men, women, hermaphrodites. I've had friends that I consider hermaphrodites even though they're not. I have friends where like, I know women with like beards. I've been friends with like women with beards. Me and Giannis used to talk about like Italian women in Long Island are all kind of trans. They're like, ugh. They're all very masculine. Like this whole idea of this gender is this rigid thing. I do find antiquated and outdated. So I'm just wondering if there's a happy medium or if there is not a happy medium. I don't really know.